Just switch. We're recording. Yeah, we is. Um, are you better? Mm-hmm. All right. So these weren't exactly difficult. I think the only difference was from the ones that we've done before is that we're using more than one quadrant. Number one, we're using, we're not using quadrant one, but we're using quadrant two, quadrant three, and quadrant four. And that was the only thing that you probably did not, if you didn't think about it clearly, you probably didn't know that. So some kids graphed the whole thing in one quadrant. I don't know how because the values did not go in one quadrant. They had negatives and positives. So on this one, what I want to do very quickly is to go over the entire thing. So that's what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to go and scroll to the bottom and do it with y'all. Yes. Paper. No, I don't have any paper. I'm actually going to do it just here. It'll be easier. All right. Y'all need to be quiet. Goodbye. All right. So what is the equation? Less than 8. All right. So the first thing we do is we already know how to get the problems, right? How to get the value of x. This should be the easy part out of the entire thing. So we add 2, right, to both sides, and we end up with negative 5x is less than 10. Now we divide by negative 5, and I think that here's where some of the kids may have gotten lost. When you divide by a negative on the left side, the sign switches, right? So it'll be greater than now. And notice that we're dividing a positive 10 by a negative 5. So our answer is what? Why is it negative? Because the signs are different, right? Every time you have one positive and not the other, like only one positive hanging around, it's going to be negative because the signs are different. So you get negative 2, right? And our number line should always start with that number in the middle. Here was the other problem that I found. Some of you do not know how the number line works. I told you before that if you were to have a little dude right here, 0 was on his chest, right? And his arms expand out, meaning that they grow, in visually speaking, they grow out from his body, right? So you start with 0, and this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, right? I want you to remember that. They grow out. So that way, if you were here, you know that after 0, this is 2 right here, and this is negative 3, this is negative 4, this is negative 5. In a way, visually speaking, the numbers grow in the opposite direction if they're negative. Does that make sense? Because some of you, I don't know how you did that, but you started putting negative 4 and 5 and 6 and like right after negative 1, which made no sense to me, but it made sense to you. I just need to make sure that you do it this way, otherwise it won't work. So now we're going to go over here, and is it an open or closed circle? Open. It's an open circle, right, at negative 2. Which direction do we highlight? We go to the right because the arrow is pointing to that. See, they look the same, right? So that's a good way of noticing where to go. Let's create our little chart. So we do x, and then we have, move too much, negative 5x minus 2, and we have our y, correct? Now we have negative 5, parentheses minus 2, negative 5, parentheses minus 2. I need you not to lose me in this process, guys. A lot of you made a huge mistake on this one right here, particularly because we're multiplying by negatives. So do not lose me. Yes. Yes. That is exactly right. And I wrote it there. When you're multiplying or dividing, if the signs are the same, you always get a positive answer. If the signs are different, you don't. You get a negative. So which numbers am I going to use? You always use the first one, by the way. The one that you find, you always use it. Then you use the ones that are next to it. That are shaded. So which one is it? -1 and 0, right? So we're going to put this in here. -2, -1, and 0. Do not lose me. Please follow me on this one so you don't, you can stay on track. When you multiply -5 times -2, what do you get? 10. 10 minus 2? 8. -1 times -5 is 5 minus 2, 3. -5 times 0, 0 minus 2, -2. Perfect. I had some kids who said 0 minus 2, that gives me 0. That's not correct. Look, I have 0 girls, but I still have 2 boys. They don't disappear. You're combining, right? If you take away 2 from 0, if you're right here at 0, right? Look up. You're at 0, right? And you take away 2, which direction do you go? To the left, right? So you go 1 and 2. What do you land? At -2, right? So that's another way to know. I'm sorry? Yes, in 4th and maybe 5th grade, they told you cannot take away from a smaller number, right? Because you were not exposed to integers. Now you are. So be careful with those things. All right, so now a lot of you said like, well, I don't like to build those little coordinate points. I don't need them. Those coordinate points tells you what graphs you're going to use. So don't lose me on this one either. -2 and 8, -1 and 3, and 0 and -2. This is my x and this is my y. Watch this carefully. Before I can decide which ones I'm going to use, which quadrant I'm going to use, I want to know what numbers I have on the x. Do I have any negatives? Yes. Do I have any positives? Exactly. Technically, no, because 0 is right in the middle. It's not negative, it's not positive, it's neither. So I'm going to use, I needed to know the negatives because that means I'm going to use the negative side of the x axis, right? This is the x axis. I'm not going to use the positive side, I'm going to use the negative side, right? That's where I need to find my numbers. That's where we start. That tells me I need to, I'm going to use that quadrant. Now you look at the y's. Do I have any negatives? Yes. So I know for sure I'm going to use that part of the quadrant. And then you ask yourself, do I have any positives? That means I'm also going to use the top part of the quadrant. So that means that I'm going to be using the entire left side of the coordinate grid. Do y'all see that? I haven't even plotted anything, and I already know what I'm going to need. That's what you need to do every single time. That way you'll know what numbers you're going to use. Otherwise, you're going to give me this crazy graph where you're plotting in the wrong spot. So let's go over here and put the numbers in. The biggest number is -2, so I don't have to go very far. -1 to 0, -2, -3, -4. That's all I need. And it goes up to 8, so I'm going to go here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and down to -2. So I'll go -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. All right, now let's go plot them. It says I have to find x, -2 on the x axis, right? So I get a -2, and then go up on 8, right? Because it's positive. So is it open or closed? It's open, right? I forgot to put it here, but it's open as well. And then for the next one, it's -1 and 3. I got a -1, and then I go up to 3. Then the next one is 0 and -2, which is right here. If you had done an extra step, meaning you did one more, you used 1, it would be -5 times 1 is -5. Minus 2 would be -7. So it would have been it would have been 1 and -7. Let's go plot that one. You go to negative 4, positive 1, and then you go to negative 7. The whole thing should create a big line, right? Which direction is it going? To the right. So you go from here and you connect all the dots. And it should be able to connect all of them, right? Yeah, this is a little not complicated. It's just a little different, and it's not very easy to remember. So you should have had done all that for that particular problem. If you, I'm gonna grade two things. I know that the graph was a little intense. I'm gonna grade this. Yes, well, you're reading right now. I need you to have the right answer right here. I need you to have the right answer on the number line. I need you to have the right stuff on the table, and the last part is this, having the graph in the correct spot. So if you got 3 out of 4, that's fine. Let's say you missed the table, but you got the rest of them right, then give me 3 out of 4 for that particular question. Yes. You missed this line? Yeah. Then you got 3 out of 4 then. However many you got correct out of the possible 4, and then put it on top for that question. That's fine. Just write it down. For the next one, here it goes. This one I might have to do over just to show you how you got the answers, because I know a lot of you had a big problem with the negatives. All right. Yeah, it'll be similar, but not the same. All right, so for this one, I already solved it, and I get x is less than or equals to 4, right? Negative 4, I'm sorry. So I go negative 4, and I shade to the left of it, because that's what needs to be shaded, right? So I selected my numbers, negative 4, negative 5, and negative 6. I plugged them in, and here's what happens. I think that's where a lot of you get confused. 3 times negative 4, what do I get? Yes. I'm going to ask you one more time. 3 times negative 4, what do I get? Negative 12. And I get negative 12 because one of those numbers is negative, the other one is positive. That means we're using two different signs, which the answer is always negative when we have two different signs, right? If you multiply or divide by different signs, the answer is negative. Look at that poster, guys. Look at that poster. I keep telling you that so many times. Now we have negative 12, and now we add 4. Some kids said that should be 16. Is that right? I'm sorry? Negative 8. Here is why. You actually have 12 boys and 4 girls. So what do I have left? 8 what? 8 boys. Do not lose me. If you didn't catch this one, catch the next one. 3 times negative 5 is what? Negative 15. Plus 4. How many boys do you have? Right now, how many boys do you have?
Negative 15.
You have 15 and 4 girls. So what do you have left? Negative 11, right? 11 boys. Careful. So 3 times negative 6, we get negative 18, right? Plus 4, the same rule. What do we have left? Negative 14. A lot of you got this part wrong because you multiply incorrectly. I need to be very, very, very careful, please. All right, so now that we can have those values, we can create our chart. And we have negative 4 and negative 8. We have negative 5 and negative 11. And we have negative 14. Nope. We have negative 6 and negative 14, right? Again, if you look at your axes, they're all negative. So I highlighted the negative side of the x-axis. Then I looked at my y's, and they're all negatives. So I highlighted the negative side of the y-axis, because I know I'm going to be using only that portion. And now you plot them, and it's easier when you already have it ready, because you can easily find the numbers rather than trying to go find them and create one table for it or one graph for it. And that should be the answer.
What if they got 2 out
then you, whatever they have correct, it should be out of 4, no matter how many they did. All right. Does it look the same, the graph though? Are the numbers for 5 and 6 the same as here? Then you should be fine. The what? The table's not wrong? Is that right? All right, let me make this clear, guys. If it's not exactly how I did it here, mark it wrong. I'm looking for the answer. That should be pretty easy to figure out. I'm looking for the number line. That should be pretty easy to look at too. The graph, the table the same way. And the graph is very visual. You should be able to tell whether it's right or not. That's 4 different things. You need the coordinate points to graph it. So in other words, if you have a table, you have coordinate points, basically. Well, they're here. They're part of it. Yeah. All right, next one. Do we have any questions on that? If you do, go back to the video, please, and watch it. Oops. Here is the other one. And that one was basically the same way as the other one. You have a negative, and you end up with positive x's, but negative y's. So when you solve for it, you get x is less than or equals to 3. So I got my 3, 4, 3, 2, and 1 as my x's. Plug them in. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 2, I have 12 boys and 2 girls. I end up with 10 boys, right? Yes. And then I go negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. You get negative 8. 8 boys and 2 girls. I end up with 6 boys, right? And same thing with the last one. So now that I have my coordinate points, all I have to do is plug them in. I know that all my x's are positive, so I would highlight the positive side of the axis. I know that all my y values are negative, so I would highlight the whole negative side of the y value, y-axis, and then I know that I'm going to have to work with that one quadrant. Please do that every single time. If you don't know where to start it, on a piece of paper, separately, draw that little cross, and then figure out which one you're going to use so you can draw that one on the paper only. Are we all following? Good. Let me pause this very quickly. All right. So on a piece of paper, I need you to not write down, but try to figure out number 1. Huh? Number 1. There you go. What? You said it's different. All right. We're concentrating on the amount of people that they can take, right? Amount of people. We know that it's $42 per person, right? But if you take up to 8 people, the price goes down. It decreases by 3 per person. So 3 is our x. 3 is our m. And we put negative because it's decreasing, right? And that should equal the total of $30. And it could have been, it could have been negative 3x plus 42 equals 30. It's the same thing. And they both give you 4. You had something wrong in there. You had negative. That's what you had. There she goes again. Like she knows I checked it, and now like. Yeah, you're right. I was absolutely wrong. 4, right? We have 2 negatives, so that's where we end up with the positive. Now, If you put 42 at the end, you end. If you put 42 at the end, you ended up with the -4, and that's not the same thing. If I put +5 on your paper, that's very different than putting -5, right? So getting a negative answer instead of the positive that is correct one doesn't mean you got the right answer. That means you did something wrong. If you were to do this one, it would be the same way, 42 minus 42, and you end up with the same situation, -3x equals -12, and then you divide by -3, x equals 4. I think we established that you were correct. Congratulations. Why is she still talking? I just told her she was correct. Of course you were correct. Both of you had the right answer the first time. I'm just hoping that on the test you also get the correct answer. Look. All right, here he goes. The next one wasn't very difficult either. All you had to do was work it out, right? This is the easy part. You already know what to do. 8x equals 72, right? You divide by 8. X equals 9. How do I plot that into the number line? What do I do? Do I shade? What do I do? You just put a dot, a number 9, right? Between. Thank you. It is not an inequality. It's an equation. So when so when you find the answer, all you have to do is put a dot in it. The next one. Now we have -5z equals 30, right? We divide by -5, and we get z equals, nope, -6 because the signs are different. +30, okay, I guess I'm wrong. Pushing it. Go ahead. Do what? It's not -30, it's +30. 34 minus 4 is 30, right?
It would have to be a bigger.
Hang on, let me start over. I need y'all to be quiet, guys. So I can explain this a little slower. No, I'm -4, -5z equals 30 because 34 minus 4 equals 30. You divide by -5. X equals -6. I go find it over here, and it's just one dot, correct? Why do y'all do the most? All right, do that one on your own. Go. That was on the other ring. Okie dokie. Prudy needs 90 or more dollars to be able to take her family out to dinner. She has already saved $30 and wants to take her family out to eat in 4 days. Suppose that Prudy earns the same each day. Rent inequality to show how much she needs to earn each day. So, which one is X? I mean, which one is M? It's 4. Well, B is the one that doesn't change. Well, here's what. Then, if you're still confused, you need to write it down as mx plus b, because that tells you what's what. So we know that m is the one that changes, right? The next to the x. It'll be 4x, and then we know that b doesn't change. She already has that money, right? So plus 30, and that should be greater than or equals to 90, right? Greater than or equals to, because she needs $90 or more. That means $90 can still be enough, right? So it could be equal to 90. Now it says, suppose that Prudy earns $18 each day. Will she have enough money to take her family to dinner in 4 days? How do you know? So you basically plug it in, right? You plug it in, and what do you get? You get 102, and that is greater than or equals to 90, right? That is, in fact, $12 more. So good job. Yes. All right. I am going to be nice to y'all, and I'm gonna have be. That will be your homework for today. That's it. You still have about 3 minutes. You can complete now. But here's the catch. I need a table. I do not need the graph, but I want the value of x. I want the number line, and I want a table, and that's it. Yeah. No, it's in the video. All right.